You're listening to a new episode of the Brave Technologist, and this one features Anton Kraminkin, who is the founder and CEO of Sleepagotchi, an upcoming sleep app that incentivizes users to sleep better using gamification and AI. Previously, Anton worked on product at Duolingo. He started Sleepagotchi while completing his studies at Harvard Business School. In this episode, we discussed surprising sleep habits they've learned about their users, the ethics of gamifying health habits and working with sensitive data, combating bots and bad actors attracted to the financial incentives they provide, their path to monetization, and ways to generate revenue in this space. And now for this week's episode of the Brave Technologist. Anton, welcome to the Brave Technologist. How are you doing, man?
Very good. Thanks for having me. How are you, Luke?
I'm doing well. Really kind of excited to have you on. We're going to go into a few areas today. Before we dive right into kind of Sleepagotchi, what you guys are doing there, why don't you give us a little bit of background? Like how did you how did you end up where you're at? Like what got you into like this Web3 and kind of sleep space and all of that? Like if you don't mind setting the table a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's thanks for the question. I mean, it's a big journey. Really, I've really looked into how to use gaming and various incentives, also be like Web3 incentives to try to change behavior, to really change the habits of users, to use those powerful forces that drives users to either trade crypto or play games, and really kind of bring it to a positive light. I used to work at a company that gamified piano education. Then I worked briefly at Duolingo, gamifying languages. So sleep was another area which isn't, I think, gamified enough, although it is actually the most important habit in some ways, because it's more important than diet. It's more important than exercise. Kind of sleep is the number one health predictor. So we kind of thought, hey, this is actually the thing to if you want to use gaming and Web3 incentives to change behavior, this is the one to actually change, because it's the one that drives a lot of things for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, one of those things, getting into crypto a while ago, one of the things that was really cool about it was that people were kind of taking like Web2 cases and adding virtuous cycles to them and gamifying them and kind of showing people that you can have added value from something that you're already doing. And a lot of people are kind of tracking like their sleep and steps and all of that, health and wellness stuff. And I think it's a really cool area that you guys are getting into, because these are the ways that you can kind of break through to those broader audiences. Everybody talks up, the next billion users or whatever, but you're not going to get to those users unless you meet them where they are, right? And this seems like such a cool one. I mean, especially with how much people are kind of trying to monitor, get better sleep and all of that. Like how much time did you guys spend? How many people are kind of trying to improve their sleep? Did you guys have to do a bunch of research into that before you decided to do the business? Into how much people are tracking their sleep and things like that? How did that evolution kind of come forward?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that the reason that Sleepagotchi can exist today, and for example, not 10 years ago, is because, 10 years ago, nobody really, I think, cared about sleep that much. Kind of, this whole hustle culture. Hey, sleep 6 hours, optimize, wake up 6 a.m., work until late night. And I think there was this, the startup grind that kind of in the tech circle, at least propagated in the 2010s. And I think then you slowly started to see first kind of, new devices like Fitbit and Aura and Whoop really, elevating the sleep importance. And then the second point is you really see the cultural change. You see Huberman Labs talking about it. You see, Peter Attia. You see other kind of, health experts really saying or Matthew Walker's this Why We Sleep book that was super popular a few years ago. And it's really started popping up, I think, 2019, 2020 in the last 5 years. So if you look at the market size, of course, of the wearable devices and just the frequency of it, it's just on the rise as people start to understand, hey, actually, sleep is super important. And, it's much better to, sleep 8 hours and have productive, 8 hours of work than, sleep 4 and then kind of, grind all day, all night.
It's true, man. And I think, it's one of those things where, yeah, the hustle culture was real. I was caught up in all of that, myself, and some of that doesn't turn off. And especially once you start having kids and stuff, it's just okay, you kind of have to surrender some parts of your time budgeting for other things. But I think how does this? Let's get into a little bit of how this works. So how does Sleepagotchi work? How do you guys gamify sleep? Can you help us unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So we give you rewards in different ways. We operate as a Duolingo on steroids. Kind of, we really lean into the gaming elements a lot. So we kind of bring you different collectibles that you can use inside Sleepagotchi app. We also give you like different heroes that you then level up based on your sleep. And three, we give you like different like Web3 incentives as well. Kind of, we give you like you are actually able to trade those currencies, to trade those characters that you get with other users. So effectively, for some users, you can actually say it's like sort of like a sleep to earn, almost like ecosystem that is being developed. And the idea is the following: like we actually don't gamify the quality of the sleep; we gamify a sleep schedule. So the number one thing in sleep is when you went to bed and when you woke up, and you need to do it like day in, day out, roughly similar time, plus or minus 20 minutes. Because this is your natural rhythm of the body, and you need to hit this rhythm. Once you hit this rhythm, everything else inside the sleep starts to fall into sleep, into this rhythm. So we measure your sleep when you went to bed and when you woke up, either with using a phone. So if you don't use your phone at night, you think you're asleep, or with the wearables who integrate with Whoop or a Fitbit, Apple Watch, you name it, every single device. And then you wake up in the morning. We check with your device activity. Hey, when did you actually go to sleep? When did you actually wake up? And then we calculate your different rewards, and we fine tune it to really try to give you like a meaningful reward for keeping to your sleep schedule. And that's the core of Sleepagotchi. And it's really not an app used at the night. It's really an app used in the morning because we really give you, we give you effectively rewards for your sleep score. So rather than just like a sleep score inside Aura, suddenly you get much more kind of a social and a gamified experience attached to your sleep.
That's cool. I mean, that's one of those things that helps things catch on, right? Because all of this stuff is pretty personal. I mean, and one thing we've seen at Brave is that there are some like features that are kind of socially driven, and ones where you get a lot of social energy around them, but like personal stuff, like health and wellness stuff, unless you kind of build a movement around it where there's that social element of it. It's a very personal thing that people tend to not really like talk about very much. So it's kind of cool that you've got this element where you could be trading collectible, and the artwork's cute too. It's just great. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like super wholesome, and people that I think that's another missing piece here with kind of getting to that broader cohort of users is that like so much of what happens in the crypto space is tribal and very like niche, like there's whole like G-Gen culture thing, and I think people are kind of burnt on that. Like whenever we run something, whether it's like penguins or something that's like we did some stuff with Moonwalk and other folks that are like trying to tie in things that people do outside of crypto with crypto. Like people's reactions to them are great, and your guys did well. It played really well with people. People liked it. Like, and I think, yeah, it's a really cool element. And people might think like, well, like people have become so attached to their phones too. I think it's a pretty fair metric, like that if people are not using their phone, just because people are on their phones, like even when they're in bed, it's wild, Like how much of this do you have to balance out when you're kind of building an app around healthier habits? Like, okay, we're on the phone, like you said. I like what you said. Where it's a morning app. Like, is that something you guys kind of encourage in the UX for the users? Is like, okay, put it away, or like how does that work? Is there much of that going on? I haven't like dug too far into it yet, but just kind of curious the mindset.
So the app, as the moment of the recording of this interview, isn't yet live in the App Store. We had like a few tests that were quite successful before that was launched for a limited amount of time, and we have it coming up as well.
Cool.
But basically, but for us, that the one of the features that we are working on is that if you, for example, say in your settings, hey, my target bedtime is like 11 p.m. After 11 p.m., like the game turns, the Sleepagotchi app turns black and white. So you can kind of still enjoy it, but it's not going to be as enjoyable in the morning.
Nice.
So it's like we try to be mindful. It's like always counterintuitive. It's like, oh well, so I need to use my phone to run my sleep, but wasn't I supposed to keep the phone outside of my bed? And really, yes, you should, but it's also almost like not possible inside today's life. You consume your news, you communicate using your phone. So the phone is almost an ideal proxy for like 70% of people in terms of their sleep, bedtime, and wake up time. At least for me, it is. For
yeah, totally. Well, and people have, I mean, their alarms are on their phones. A lot of people are like falling asleep with, I don't know, like meditative stuff or things going on, like, it's lullaby types of things, right? Like on their phones. People are so attached to them. It's wild. And so right now you mentioned the app's coming out soon. Like, what do you guys, I know there's like a Telegram channel. Like, are you guys building up the social element of it? Like, what's the current thing, that people are doing?
Yeah, the current thing. So we have a public test coming out in a few weeks from now, so early May, as the plan for it. And then we gonna like once if the test goes well, and we want to go well, we kind of rolling out it widely in a global release. As a go-to-market marketing strategy, we release like a very toned down Telegram mini app version, as we saw the Telegram. Just virality that happened with all those stuff. And the hypothesis was, hey, let us use some of the assets we developed, the cute, wholesome characters, just put them into Telegram mini app and let the virality take its part to build a community and build awareness about the full launch of Sleepagotchi, ahead of the launch. And right now, people are able to play the version on Telegram. There's no sleep involved. We can't track sleep on Telegram. It's called Sleepagotchi Lite. It still shares the same IP. It kind of has a similar ethos, that it's ultimately a product that is designed about wellness and health and sleep in its mind. But it is a Telegram collectible card, Telegram collectible card game where we share the same IP and tell the story about the upcoming Sleepagotchi. So we kind of use it as a marketing tool. And that's why we also did a collaboration with Brave, where we kind of, we took we took over the tab, we did some push notifications to drive users into the Telegram mini version, so that later on they also convert to the full product.
That's cool. Yeah, and we wanted to kind of get into that bit too. Like, especially over the past year, it seems like Telegram's really kind of taken off as a distribution channel in a way, like a go-to-market. Like, how has that been for you guys? I mean, you've obviously worked in other apps before, right? Like, in the past, especially that gamify things. Like, how has that experience been? Kind of going to market through Telegram. Has it been positive? Like, and then like how well has the mini app plugged into that whole process?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the Telegram mini apps have the benefit that it's very easy to share. It's very easy to install. So there's like no friction to install it. Like, people getting an app installed is already like a challenge for many people. I mean, it just takes time with friction. And then two is very easy to track referrals. So if I kind of invite a friend over, it's very easy to track. Whereas iOS, for example, doesn't do it like that easily. So you kind of send a referral link. You have to always use workarounds. So you have this additional, virality factor that is inherent to all mini apps if you have like a shareable product. At the same time, what needs to be aware about Telegram is that the users don't really retain as well as in like normal apps, because if I'm on Telegram, it's ultimately Messenger. I get a message, I quit my app because I'm really there to use it. And the second point is that there are many. Telegram is such an open platform. It's that they are just there are bots. There are kind of bot farms and people trying to farm those different apps. And Telegram, because it's an open ecosystem, like it's very easy to publish an app. Like there are almost like no review processes. It also makes it easy for you to spin up thousands of accounts and do something. So we always need to find the right balance between growth and making sure we're like are bot resistant. So this was another finding, and also the geographical presence is very different. So I think like Telegram is like the CIS messenger. So I myself from the CIS region, I talked to my grandmother, using Telegram, and then it's also like it's a crypto native messenger as well. So it's an interesting mix of users. It's either like CIS folks, a little bit Brazil, a little bit of Germany, a little bit like Philippines, but really it's like CIS plus crypto. So it's a very interesting mix of users.
Yeah, for folks who might be familiar with the acronym, can you unpack that one real quick, just so people might see it? Is that what Eastern Europe?
Is like the former Soviet republics.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. No, that's super interesting. I mean, and it's one of those things where you kind of get the good with the bad, but it is cool to see kind of. One thing I liked about it too is it seems like they have almost like a prefab of the policies and things like that. So they make it easy to kind of like jump in, use the default policies for things, and get running with it. But it's interesting to see that, like, because you've got them when they're in there, but then I don't know, like with Telegram, I just turn the notifications off because there's just so much noise in there all the time. But it seems like a really cool way, like knocking out that friction, like you say, like getting people in the door, and then if they're retaining in your app, like that's cool. Like once they're in. But yeah, this is really interesting to me, just the social element of it, how you can tie that in. And I really like how you guys are doing that, kind of like you're building the app, but like you're also kind of building a community first too at the same time, like in parallel, which is like super key too. Are there other things that you guys are? Is it only? Are you guys planning to just keep it sleep related, or are there other areas that you guys are going to look into gamifying too with health or other things like that? Like, what's kind of the roadmap shaping up to be?
Yeah, I mean, potentially long term, yes, we would look into expanding into other, health verticals. We believe we can scale, sleep to a big kind of outcome, both as a company and both as a consumer product, having just millions of people use it. So right now the focus is on sleep, and we really want to nail this down. In the future, I could see us both like expanding, vertically into like more sleep stuff, like sleep hardware, for example, or horizontally into other gamifying other activities, be it dieting or exercising. With all those products, it's always like slightly different target audience. It's always a slightly different challenge how to track it. I think about diet, it's very hard to track it actually. Like right now, you need to like enter. You used to enter them manually. Right now, you use the AI to enter. Maybe you could take a photo as well, but it's still cumbersome. Even like walking, not so much. Like 10,000 steps easier to do, but dieting, like I mean, how many biceps curls? Like someone
and people got to be honest too, like with that stuff. And people are people, right?
Yeah, exactly. They have to be honest. And with sleep, you already have the phone as a proxy. Alarm clock is a proxy for your sleep. So it's almost like it's the easiest one to track more accurately at scale. And the reason why you realize that is because it actually started as a water bottle. The original idea was to gamify water intake.
Oh, really?
Sort of niche. And then we it's so hard to track water. Oh my God. Yeah. But maybe we track sleep because it's easier to track sleep.
Well, it seems like sleep's a pretty like evolved thing too. Like there's a lot of that you could kind of, branch into within sleep itself, right? Like, like disturbed sleep, disturbed sleep, like a lot of stuff to learn about, right? Like I'd imagine and yeah, who knows? What I think was really cool too is that what you guys are doing here is kind of creating a model that other apps could even use, right? So like if a diet app that's specialized in diet and health wants to like kind of break into Web3 or whatever, you guys kind of have a footprint that they can, or like a template that they can use as a model, and you guys can work together. And it's super interesting. I just think these apps that are like, there's such crossover potential, and we've seen that with Brave, where in the last season or whatever you want to cycle, whatever you want to call it, like a lot of people, like when your neighbors are talking about this stuff, they're like, look, like I don't understand what anybody's talking about over there, but I know that if I use the browser, I can earn crypto with it. Like that's super easy for people to understand. Like this, like okay, if I'm maintaining good sleep schedule, like I'm going to like get rewarded for it, right? Like that's a meaningful thing, and you're playing on an existing. There's no way to get around the fact that you need sleep. Like it's a great behavior, right? Like that to be building, an app around. And I'm surprised like more people haven't done this either. I think it's super cool that you guys are like leading the way on this, especially in crypto, right?
Yeah. I mean, with many points theory, I mean, like earning crypto for browsing is, it sounds like such a neat idea as well. But at the same time, I imagine that so many, pieces need to fall together to actually make it work. Like you need to build a network out of advertisers. You need to make sure that this whole infrastructure works out so that the payments in crypto are actually sustainable and are not driven just by speculative like demand by some force. So for us as well, I mean, yes, it sounds like very cool in concept, like, hey, earn crypto for your sleep. At the same time, to make it sure that this model is going to work 5-10 years from now, we have to really, think very deeply about how does this ecosystem look like? What are actually the behaviors we reward? Where is the money coming in? Who's paying for the sleep effectively? Right. So it's a very like interesting problem to solve, I have to say.
Yeah, and I think up front too. I mean, it's almost like A lot of this is kind of the inverse of what you deal with in Web 2 space, where like it's all about growth, 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 growth. But then in this space, there's the bots and the Sybil stuff is so intense because there's such an incentive to do that up front that it's almost like, look, like I'll knock myself out at the knees to have lower numbers that are real, right? Like, and a lot of that kind of gameplay in the beginning, and then growing that healthier number, because we deal with that too, where it's like you throw a reward out there, people want to like gamify that, like, and they're pretty good at it too, like with that stuff, and so I think that's really interesting. So let's get into this bit too, like, how so people are earning from their sleep, like, how are you guys making money with all this?
Yeah. So we explore like different models, like how do we actually make sure that there is some financial incentive flowing in. So the main idea that we have is basically we can build such an engaging experience and a game around the sleep that we will have like users who are willing to pay just for the in-game items, be it like cosmetics or kind of heroes. And then part of this economic kind of revenue activity kind of flows back to the other user bases. So for us, this idea, can we build an engaging product where people would stick even without kind of crypto incentives, so that when on top you kind of add them, it adds fire, fuel to the fire in a sense, effectively.
Yeah.
And kind of as a benchmark that we use is that 1.5 years ago, Nintendo released Pokemon Sleep. It's like Pokemon Go, but you sleep. You wake up in the morning, you collect different Pokemon, and they gamify the sleep quality, not sleep schedules like we do. But they make 100 million revenue per year in revenue, and it's kind of pure revenue that goes towards Nintendo, the Pokemon company, in that case. And we think, hey, this outcome is possible for a sleep gamification app, a sleep game. Of course, they have the Pokemon IP, but we have Web3. We have other.
You guys have good IP. I think that's the thing. I mean,
as well. Yeah.
Well, and that's also what makes this industry a bit different from others, is that like you look at, like, we had Luca Netz on the podcast with the IP Pudgy, with the Pudgy IP, like they've been doing all sorts of things, like building, startups around that, et cetera. Like you guys have good IP. Like I think, a lot of times it's so, like we talk about the inverse, of what you're dealing with, compared to like the Web2 world, right? A lot of this is just, you have projects that have good IP that don't know what to attach it to, right? Like, and here you've got a good app use case for sleep and health and all that, like, and you've got good IP. Like Web3 is actually a space where you can make those two things click and work really well. And I think that's smart too, because earlier you mentioned, right, like how you're building marketplace types of activity, people can trade things, et cetera. There's like lots of ways to process fee, to catch a fee on that stuff, and kind of build a business around that. And that's the other thing I really like about this space, is that you can, if you have the right ingredients, like the community and cultural aspect of it can do a lot of, there's so many projects out there that you're like, why does this have like a huge market cap like this for these like Nintendo 8-bit graphic looking, IP that they've got, like, and it's just like, well, sometimes the ingredients work for that. Like if you guys have them with sleep and health and wellness, and it's actually like helping people, like that's something I feel like there's a real appetite for in the space right now, just because of all of the shenanigans that have been happening. I don't know, like how are users, what's the feedback like so far, like from the mini app? I know the full on app isn't out yet, but like how is the community, how have people been responding to what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty, we had, I think, two tests so far, public tests, private tests in some capacity. And the feedback was, very positive. We were able just to keep growing the community. We had a very large user base in Japan in particular. We saw that a quarter of our users came from Japan. Wow. And this was the most organic community for us. And we were like, hey, why Japan? This is so weird. I've never been to Japan before. I started, for example, working on Sleepagotchi. But then we look at the data. Hey, Japanese people sleep the least in the entire world. So, sleep is a cultural issue for the Japanese, much more than it is. They sleep 6 hours, 15 minutes. Americans sleep 7 hours, 15 minutes, for example, on average. But the need is still the same. So we said, okay, that's interesting. So we see a little bit more product market fit pull towards Japan. So we start to make changes to the product so that it appears not just to what I think, the West, for example, is getting used, but also some elements that are, very popular in Japan. So this is like kawaii art style, kind of very cute, cozy, wholesome animals. We add, gacha components, and we add a JRPG, so Japanese role-playing games component, also to the gamification element from that side. And the other feedback that is sort of hard to get from users is that just we saw the activity of users and we look at the data of the test and it's like spike activity, 7:05, 7:10, 7:15. So it's like when people wake up, the first thing they actually do is check their sleep score. So we actually motivate them to do it before they do WhatsApp, before they do Instagram, before they check the messenger. So this is another finding for us. Oh, wow, like we can make this product has potential to become a habit-based product very early on for the users. Like it's like 7:10, 7:05. Wow, first thing on the mind of a user before they go to Instagram is Sleepagotchi. We're like, oh wow, that's really interesting. We should do it. So we really use this feedback to convince us that we should work on this idea and not something else.
I mean, that fact alone is incredibly powerful, right? Like you're in the mindset of the user before they even go to Instagram. Like that's insane. That's awesome, man. I mean, that's really yeah, that's a really powerful statement. Like to find out, and this is this early too, so that's super cool. I think how much is AI a part of what you guys are doing? Are you guys using AI like in the app or with the process or tooling or any of that?
Oh, we use AI across, I think, every single process inside of the development of the app itself, be it like in concept art generation for our artists or coding or just, for engineering support, or we use it for, some, write up inside the community communication. Sometimes we just like make sure that, hey, make it crisper, make it cleaner, those type of stuff. Inside the product, the main use is that the way we measure track with our device actually uses a fair bit of AI and machine learning because the phone data, for example, yes, we I mentioned that, hey, we use like when you use the phone at night, when you use it in the morning, this is your proxy of your sleep, but we actually use it like using phone motion activity data. And then if you get like a push notification at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., suddenly, the data tells us you were awake, but obviously you weren't awake. So there's actually quite a lot of like AI stuff, machine learning stuff to figure out so that actually this data is clean. This data can be used as proxy for your actual sleep data because there are so many edge cases. People all sleep so completely different. Some people just, we look at the data, 1 to 3 a.m., they actually kind of wake up every night for no reason at all. And we really try to use machine learning and AI to make sure that the sleep algorithms works. And then with those LLMs, we just use it. Large language models, we use them in production process mostly. Potentially can come into product like, hey, here are some sleep tips. But this is like a very like fast feature to build, but you also need to be safe and secure that AI isn't like hallucinating any tips you shouldn't do.
Or giving you nightmares or whatever, right? Like, yeah. Well, and to that point too, I think, we talk a lot about the positives too. What are things that you guys have to be mindful of? Like, are there negatives? Like, are there ways that this could get out of hand, or are there threats or concerns that you guys have when you're building something like this? Like, I mean, I would imagine data privacy is one of them, but are there any other things that you guys are actively kind of like, factoring in?
Yeah, for us, because we have, crypto incentives baked into the sleep, for us, a big thing, it's anti-cheat, anti-spam, and anti-DDoS, meaning and anti-Sybil resistance as well. Just because once you add a financial incentive, boy, there are, people all around the world ready to hack it up. Even for the Telegram mini version, where there's like no direct benefit today, there's like a promise of an airdrop later on coming up. We see that people are, playing around with the app. We see like GitHub repositories where people literally write and share like bots how to potentially kind of play it out. So for us, we just want to make sure that we don't reward bad behavior. We reward actually kind of real users inside the app, like the most valuable people inside the ecosystem. And also so that we don't accidentally kind of, print, a million rewards to our users and more. So this is kind of the top of mind for us. Yes, of course, kind of data privacy is important for us. We keep the sleep data. We don't share it with anyone. But kind of just in Web3, just the scale of the bots, even at Duolingo, they were like bots. They were like people trying to, climb up to the leaderboards, etc. So, and this like Duolingo is literally like a language learning app with nothing at stake. Like it's not even a game, right? It's just like leaderboards. You get bots with people writing it up, etc. In Web3, it's an incredible. I don't know if you see it like a Brave as well, but for us,
Oh my
we have
God!
like,
If there's a surface to gamify, it's already been gamified, and there might be a village somewhere with Sleepagotchi village in Thailand or something where they're running. You're feeding an entire village off of the crypto rewards on it. Like we saw that kind of stuff. It's an interesting mix too because you have like these it's like almost like friendly fraud cases where like people that are legitimately like genuinely excited about it, but might be misusing it, right? Like, and then you've got like people that are definitely bad actors and then you've got people that are just like the intended use case who there it's one person or it's a household or whatever and it definitely is a balancing act like or has been at Brave like okay balancing the people that are genuinely excited but maybe like and some of this might just be language barrier stuff like there's all these like factors you're dealing with like global community right where it's not like okay I'm just targeting the U.S. or Western Europe or wherever, especially Telegram, you're running for everybody, right? That's where the world's kind of gone in this whole post-COVID era. Like a lot of people were getting their news from Telegram and a lot of things like that, just because that's where they could get information quickly. It's interesting, man. Like it's definitely it's. I think it's also it says something about the resilience of a startup if you can make it through that and get to scale like past that, you're learning lessons there that you can't learn them in school. Like that, this is like real world stuff. It's like if you can get really good on defense and really good on and still put out a product and have a really authentic, genuine community that like loves it. I don't know, dude. Like there's a whole set of founders out there. I mean, especially like over the past 4+ years, like if you were putting something together, you're still around. And now where things are kind of lightening up on that front, like you can really scale up. Like it says something about the resilience of the founders that can make that happen. But I don't know. I think so much of this boils down to just having the right ingredients. And I don't know. I'm really excited to see what you guys do. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think at this point, I think the biggest challenge is, you could add all those security measures, but then you start to really, endanger the core experience of the real user. If you add all those protections, you're like a captcha element of every single like action, for example, as a perfect way to combat bots, then your product is not usable. So how do you balance it out so that you still use it frictionlessly, but still limit the bot? So it's a massive.
And the thing is, there is no silver bullet, and everything gets gamed. I mean, like that's part of it. Like whether you're dealing with like legitimate bots or like even when people say like KYC AML stuff, it's like, dude, like everybody that really wants to get around that's already gotten around it. By the time the next thing comes out, they're already have a way to get around that too. It's just it's an adversarial game, right? Like, and so like to a certain degree, you kind of have to loss lead with some of that in the beginning, to just learn what the fit is, right? Like, I mean, you guys at Sleep, but there's so much more to that, I would imagine, because you're trying to build community and like, you'll find stuff in there. You'll find things in the community that stand out, right? Like, I mean, there's just like behavior patterns of people like engaging with each other where you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, this guy's like, just from seeing things that like, okay, you start to spot the patterns. I think you just got to let some of this ride in the beginning and see like, build some community around it. And some of that's self-policed out too and things like that. So you guys are on Telegram, right? Like where else, where can people find Sleepagotchi right now if they want to clue in and when is the app coming out? Like so we can, get folks excited about it.
Absolutely. So in May, we are planning to do the test release. And then estimating in June is going to be like a wide release for us. Oh, cool. You'll be able to find us in iOS App Store or in the Google Play Store. In the meantime, it's the Sleepagotchi Lite version is live on Telegram. It's going to be live on the Line Messenger very shortly. Line Messenger is the kind of the biggest messenger in Japan and Taiwan. And also you can find us on sleepagotchi.com or on X, handle is Sleepagotchi. So it's spelled like Tamagotchi, but with sleep. So if you level up your Tamagotchi while you sleep, that's kind of also awesome. the concept there in the name.
I love it, man. What blockchain are you guys working with? Just out of curiosity.
What blockchain is it? So primarily for us is the Solana blockchain. We also partnered with Sonium, the L2 by Sony on Ethereum for the Line Mini app because we really wanted a person familiar with Web3 and Japan at the same time, because in comparison, for example, to Telegram, where it's a very open messenger, Japan and Line is a very closed ecosystem.
It's huge. Yeah,
it's huge, but it's all like you need to know your stuff. I think like in Brave, it's all like Japan is also like a big market for Brave, and it's like separate.
We have like a whole team of people in Japan that only focus on Japan, because it's like such a huge market, but it's such a different market, right? Like you have like language barriers, but then like you said earlier, like the gamification's different, the cultural stuff. Like they did a lot of stuff like 10 years ago that is starting to become more popular now. Like go build puzzle pieces together and collectibles and things where they're, a lot of that started to, we saw a different fit there, but it was good. You got to get out there too, by the way. Like Tokyo is fantastic, one of the best cities ever. It's amazing. It's like the inside of a watch. You look at it, you're like, oh my god, like how it's been here for thousands of years, and like it's clean and it's very different but awesome experience. But yeah, so and also too, where can people find you? Like if they want to follow what you're doing, or are you publishing stuff, or are you out there on X or any LinkedIn or any of these platforms?
Yeah, so mostly on X. So it's like Anton Gotchi. So rather than replace the sleep with Anton, so Tamagotchi, but with Anton. So that's my handle on Twitter and on Telegram. Awesome.
Well, Anton, man, I really appreciate you making the time to come here and tell us about it. I'd love to have you on too, like to check back in, like after the app's out and see how things are going and learn more about what you guys are up to then. But yeah, really appreciate it. Really appreciate that you guys are kind of trying to gamify better health and building an interesting use case for crypto that we can actually go and get people grow the space with. I think it's really fantastic. So thanks again for making it out today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Luke, for having me. It's been fun.
All right. We'll talk soon. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Brave Technologist podcast. To never miss an episode, make sure you hit follow in your podcast app. If you haven't already made the switch to the Brave browser, you can download it for free today at brave.com and start using Brave Search, which enables you to search the web privately. Brave also shields you from the ads, trackers, and other creepy stuff following you across the web.